Hey guys, welcome back to World of Warships. Today we're taking a look at the Vermont, brick gaming at its finest here. With these new commander changes, the build here is a little bit crazy. We're kind of all out on offense with this thing, and I've given up a lot of defensive tools that Vermont can have access to in favor of maximizing these main guns. So a nice little 30k chunk into the Freddy there. At pretty long ranges, Vermont, of course, has 12 457mm main guns that are rather accurate. They do a lot of damage and have an extremely long reload. That's really the pain point here. So you're going to have to pick your shots wisely and hopefully land some nice salvos into broadside ships. Nice little 20k there in on the Iowa. So 2 salvos, 50,000 damage already in this game. That's really kind of the Vermont in general. You're giving up DPM, you're giving up mobility, you're giving up a lot to gain these main guns. So they better punch hard when you do catch someone out. Someone goes broadside to you, you really do hope for those dev strikes, or at least a lot of damage. You're also going to find that I tend to hold my shot a lot in the Vermont, since it's a pretty massive commitment to send out a salvo with this thing. It's no Colbert or something like that we looked at earlier, where your reload is so fast that you should just be shooting regardless of the opportunity you're maybe missing out on. You can always turn your guns and fire really quickly again in a lot of these ships in the game. Vermont, though, commits a lot. So we want salvos like that. We want to look for opportunities like that and hopefully get that reward, that dev strike on a broadside cruiser. So that is what, 3 salvos, 100k damage? Pretty spicy start to this game. If you don't have a Vermont, the grind is rather painful, but once you get to the tier 10, you're gonna have a pretty good time. I think it's a lot of people's favorite or one of the more played battleships at tier 10 if you're just all out looking for dev strikes, right? You're not playing this thing for DPM, you're not playing this thing for secondary brawling at all. You're playing it to hit those big shots. Get a little bit of damage in on the sub, that's fine. But look at our concealment here, 12.6 with these guns. We weren't even detected here when shooting this Soyuz. like the concealment's nuts on this thing. I think that probably should change, should be a little bit less stealthy. But there's another 42k into the Soyuz. So 4 salvos, 150,000 damage from a Vermont. Yeah, it's a pretty spicy game. This thing is a lot of fun. Although with this build, it's possible that even if we get those salvos, we could die rather quickly. So I've been in some pretty rough situations with the Vermont. We'll look at that in our next game. I've got 2 games to actually show you here. But with this build, running things like Furious, running things like heavy AP, not taking fire prevention, we can get ourselves into trouble rather quickly. So it's a good thing the Vermont has so much healing at its disposal. It's really one of the other things that makes this ship a little better than the Montana. It's not only the guns having overmatch and more alpha damage, but the heals here are just so wonderful. Having the fast cooldown like the Ohio gets, like the Massachusetts and Georgia gets, it's very, very powerful on a ship on any battleship, really. I would rather actually have the Ohio style heals than the Montana ones. Montana has the improved healing, but it really comes down to giving you more HP per heal. But I'd rather have my reload on those heals be a little bit faster. In fact, double, twice as fast. It's a pretty massive buff. Iowa is really all that's left on this flank, and really all we're going to get in this game yet. We're going to have to just do some sniping later on here, but you should be aware of armor schemes on enemy ships if you're going to be playing the Vermont. Since you are committing so much to a single salvo, it's important to know where to aim, especially when people are angled like this. Iowa here is showing enough for us to get a little bit of a cheek shot into him. You probably know that in regards to Yamato hitting the cheek, that's the very easy one to point out. But a lot of battleships have a bit of a corner of their citadel where you can actually get some citadels at some pretty extreme angles. Typically, if someone's able to fire their back turrets at you, they've pretty much exposed that citadel. Even a little sharper angle yet. If you've got improved pen angles on something like a Stalingrad, you could even go for even sharper angles yet. But with normal battleship guns, you just really need to consider that at close range, if you're firing your back guns, you're liable to be citadels. That's why you see me often just angling in and out all the time when I'm playing my battleships at close ranges. Don't really want to expose that for too long. Pretty decent game there, ended up with around 200k, but this game is going to be a bit of a troublesome one where we are going to be forced to brawl a little bit. We're going to be forced to tank quite a bit in this game, and we don't have the best tanking build, certainly. But first, a broadside Montana. We wait patiently for a better shot. Don't even go for that cheek. Wait for the broadside, and we get another 47,000 damage. Only one Citadel in that one, but still a very powerful salvo. And our teammates are actually going to finish him off there. I'm going to jump ahead quite a ways in this game because not a lot happened. We've talked about patience a lot in a lot of these Battleship videos, and this game was no different. You have to be very, very patient. So way further along in the match here. We're pretty even on ships at this point-ish, and we're ahead on caps and points, but we still need to do some pushing here because the enemy sub is in our backline. So pushing through the gap here, we get the dream salvo into a Napoli. I was talking about how difficult Napolis can be to deal with in the Hanover video the other day, and at that range, fortunately, Vermont does deliver for us. So we do manage to get a dev strike even in on him. There we go. There's the sub. That's the problem. So we're going to have to try and help our teammates take him out, as well as hopefully apply some pressure to this A cap here. We have a lot of HP, so we do need to start using it here. Not going to fully push, just in case the split has some torps for us. Also, pretty easy to just get farmed out by an Otago and Preussen secondaries, for example. So we will want to be using islands to our advantage anyway. But even with a build as extreme as this one, we'll see it in a little bit, but I've already mentioned Furious, heavy AP, no fire prevention. You can see how extreme that build might be. There are times where you are going to be required to tank for your team and take some damage and try to survive. And this is one of those times here, I think. The enemy team could easily deal with our ships in the B cap. You notice they took out the GK, and the enemy sub is still alive, so something to be aware of here as well. Concealment does allow us to go dark here. Fortunately, the Preussen did just go behind the island. I'm not sure why he necessarily did that, but very fortunate for us. And we're just going to try and reverse behind cover. I don't need this cap, but I do want to be applying some pressure here. I don't want to just let our teammates all die, because we are down on teammates here right now. So if I were to just hide, the enemy ships could easily target my friendlies that could go down even quicker, and then I'd be left all alone. So I do want to be using some of my HP here, and we're seeing a bit of the downside here of not taking fire prevention. 2 permanent fires burning on our ship, no damage control available. But we still have this island, and we are dark right now. Preussen is going to come out, but a little too broadside. So even though we're not really going to get citadels on a Preussen, heavy AP does mean we slap just a little bit harder into the broadside. So 34,000 damage there. Not the best salvo. I've seen upwards of 50k from Vermont's before, even without heavy AP. But still a pretty decent salvo into this guy. We have a Musashi here with us as well that we do need to trade off tanking. He has a little more HP than me right now, but he could lose a lot of it here if he angles incorrectly. And the B cap starts getting flipped. So that's going to be the sub, guys. So we're going to have to try some blind drops, hopefully, and worry about that mostly. Just because the enemy team is kind of kiting off the map right now. They're kind of more of a distraction, where the submarine is going to be that flanking punch for them at the moment. So we're going to have to worry about that. If we get spotted, I might take a blind shot here, actually, just because we know that the only thing that's going to spot us in this position is going to be the sub. And we do get a hit. If I had loaded HE, for example, we probably would have got a little more with some splash damage. The AP is really not that good into submarines, but still going to try it. We're up to 160,000 damage here. Pretty good. But notice how we've burned through quite a few of our heals here. So that fast cooldown is nice, but if you run out of heals when you're trying to tank like this, especially without fire prevention, things like that, to reduce that fire damage, heavy AP increasing fire damage even, you got to be a little bit careful. But that's where we're actually running something to get us 6 heals with this ship. So I'm actually running both the upgrades that allow us to get more healing, both the 4-pointer and the 3-pointer. I think there's only a few ships in the game that can really get away with that. and that's really the ones that have the fast cooldown on that heal. We do manage to take out the submarine behind us, which is very nice, but you'll notice we have lost our Musashi and our other cruiser, so it's just us and this Guden here that need to clutch this game up. Could be a little bit tricky. The split does show himself, and I'm gonna wait. I'm not gonna shoot when he's at his slimmest profile. He might get greedy for torpedoes or just shooting his rear gun, anything like that. We want to wait for that opportunity, because with heavy AP, we're actually increasing our alpha damage of our armor piercing, which we're loaded right now. So those overpens that we're guaranteed to get are just gonna do that little bit more damage. And we get a dev strike on a destroyer. Dev strike with the armor piercing, kind of shades of the old World of Warships where full pens actually did full pen damage to destroyers, and you got a lot of dev strikes on DDs, especially gearing when it was so fat before. That was a prime target for dev strikes back in the day. But they removed that now, but you can see that AP overpens still can do some pretty decent damage here if we hit enough of our shells. And notice that now that we've passed 2 million potential damage, we get that extra heal. This was our last heal that we were using right now, but we still have one in the tank now thanks to that extra 3-pointer skill. It can be useful. Like I said, it's only useful in the games where you're gonna need it, right? Where you need that extra heal. You've probably already got 2 million potential damage at higher tier, and when it comes to things like Vermont or Ohio, that could mean a 6th heal is actually valuable to you. Notice here, it is still a full heal. It's not like we've taken permanent damage where that last heal isn't going to be valuable to us. That still would be a full heal. I'm not actually turning my guns to shoot at this Editora here just because the Atago farming us probably would kill us faster than the Battleship AP shooting at us from an angle. So I'm really just trying to wait and prevent this Atago from just shooting me at all. That's kind of why I was waiting there. But a pretty nice game still. 4 kills in this one and 170,000 damage. Or a little more, 190 even, with that Citadel there right at the end, getting us our high caliber. Vermont is a pretty strong battleship, I think, to say the least, and getting some dev strikes like this feels rather good, and this build is kind of crazy. I don't necessarily recommend it, but we may as well take a look at it here just to see what I've been playing around with this update. And I've certainly been playing around with this build a lot. It is by no means an optimized build. Even here, you can tell that super heavy AP means we're not taking improved repair party readiness. I played these games a little while ago, so I do apologize. I didn't have that exactly right. You can't have super heavy AP and the 6th heal at the same time. I've kind of decided that it's probably not worth going for 6 heals for the most part, just because even in that game where we could have needed it had the game gone on a little bit longer, it obviously didn't. So it didn't matter quite as much. And I wanted to try out heavy AP and Furious just to go full crazy build. Yeah. This is what I'm trying, guys. Brisk, of course, is very nice with the insane conceal that this ship has. But these two here, Heavy AP and Furious, I've been running them a lot on a lot of these battleships, and I don't feel like I've been punished a ton for it, just because I'm playing a little smarter, perhaps. If you do want to full YOLO in, like I have a tendency to do at times, you do want fire prevention and other basic survivability type skills. But even then, you probably are going to die most of the time anyway. It's more important that you pick the right opportunity to push rather than taking some of these skills. I think that's kind of been my conclusion. Playing with some suboptimal builds, let's say, this update. The upgrades here look a little something like this. Of course, we're going accuracy. I'm even running turret traverse here just because they are a little bit slow. But sometimes you can get away with running artillery plotting room here just to give you that little bit of extra range to go say hello to a carrier, for example. That's always a nice thing to do. And other than that, that's kind of the build on this ship. You guys know Vermont already at this point. Very, very strong ship, but one that's a little bit slow to position and can be a little frustrating with that 40-second reload. But when you're hitting those shots, there's not a lot of battleships that are more enjoyable than Vermont, that's for sure. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.